Hello, welcome all to Library Quest, where the goal of this channel is to find books that are worthy enough to be on my own personal library. And so this is the video that I was most excited for. It is the wrap up for January of 2025, my first month of being on YouTube. I just done a couple videos, but I'm just trying to get this whole entire thing together, and it's a fun little journey. So I thought it'd be fun to start off with. How many books did I finish this month? I finished 10. With the stats of those 10 books, page count 3,879 pages. Hours read. Now, Bookmori has this, which is an amazing tracker for books. It has a way to track how many hours you've been reading, and I was shocked by the hours that I read. 108 hours and 18 minutes. That just shocked me. And I was just like, because it was a well-read month. I read so much different type of genres that I was just enjoying myself. I definitely tried to cut off a lot of television and had this books as my main source of entertainment. And so this here is my ranking for the January 2025, the top 10 books for this month. And sad to say, my least favorite book of the month is Somewhere Beyond the Sea by J.T. Klune, or T.J. Klune. This book, the first book in the series, House in the Cerulean Sea, is a 5 out of 5 for me. It is such an amazing book. Where the sequel, I was just so excited to finally get into it, get to see my best friends, and just get to hang out with these group of people. And I am sad to say how disappointed I am with this book. The story is that Arthur, who is the guardian of these children, and these children are magical beings. We got people like Chauncey, who is this blob that wants to be a bellhop, to even Lucy, who is also known as Lucifer, who is the Antichrist, to all these amazing different characters. And so with this book, we got Arthur, who's trying to protect his family. He's trying to hide them from the evils that are in the world. And I was all ready to go into this book. But at times, it felt like that nothing really happens. There's a lot of fluff in the book. Yes, I love hanging around with these characters, but there are times where I'm just like, what's the true point of this book? Because you do have Arthur, our main character, who is trying his hardest to protect these children from the evil that's in the world. And I love that. I absolutely love that storyline. But there are moments in this book where I'm just like, where are we actually going within this? Because the first book had such a strong premise, strong characters, that I felt like every single page had meaning to it and just had heart to it. Where with this one, I just sometimes did not feel it. And by the end, I was asking myself, do I really want to read the third book? And that's something I never thought I would feel like with these characters. Because at the end, it was going in a direction that I myself did not know if I really wanted to continue the journey with these characters, because it felt like, to me, they should have just stopped with book one, had it as a standalone. But with this book, there were some amazing sequences of events, but they just didn't hold up. And so when I am looking at ranking my books that I read, I'm more ranking them on how I felt in general with them, not being like a score defines where it will be placed. Because if that was the case, Fourth Wing would be on the bottom. My wife, she read the first 3 books in the series in like a week. She just ate it up, and I just saw the joy that this book series was bringing to her. And so she asked me, David, I really want you to read this series just so we can talk about it. And because I started this whole entire channel, I thought that this would be a great journey for me to go into a genre that I not really have any experience in, with the fantasy romance subgenre of the fantasy genre. And I had at moments with this book where I was just super frustrated. I felt like the character just explains by how beautiful her crush is all the time, that I was just like, ugh. But then something clicked inside of me where I was like, I am actually reading a CW show. I loved CW. I still do. They're like a guilty pleasure for me. And then once that clicked, I was like, okay. Now the storyline is that Violet, she is basically living in a family that has a legacy. Her mother is way up there within the army of the world that they live in. And so she has been training herself to be a scribe. And her mother says, nope, you're not going down that road. You're going to become a dragon rider. And so now death is at every single turn. Death can happen. And so I was reading it. I was just like, oh, I get it. It's a CW show. And then once that clicked, I was like, okay. Yeah, I will admit that when those inner dialogue happened where I was just like, oh, I can skip this because I've seen this a million times before. And she keeps on doing it, talking about how sexy an individual is. And I'm just like, okay. And there are characters in there where there's no actual character depth to them. They're more of a character archetype where they're just like, all right, this is the villain. He's just a villain. There's nothing actually saving him. There's nothing actually human about him. And then there's some of the characters where it was just like, they're just an archetype. But I did enjoy my time with it. I did enjoy reading, or because while I was reading this, I would have the audio playing, and I would just be enjoying it in bed with my wife, and it was just fun to talk to your partner about a book series that they love. And I'm definitely down for the second one. It's not the worst book I ever read. It's definitely not the greatest, but it's just a popcorn. It's just like putting popcorn and just watching a good action flick. And it's just like shut off your brain and just enjoy your time. And then the next book that I read that was really disappointing, and this was a 2025 release with Voice Like a Hyacinth. Now this book comes out in the first week of February, I believe, and Amazon was giving this book away for free for people that had the Kindle Unlimited a month early. So I was really excited to read it just because it was a 2025 book. And this book felt like it had 2 sides to it. It had the story of a senior in college who's in art school, and she is going into a career that's all about the individual, where she finds all of her personality is within her friend group. She doesn't actually know who she truly is. And so with this being a senior year, and with her group of friends who are also seniors, they're all basically fighting for the one spot to get a solo gallery. And this is a big jumping on point for their career. There's going to be a lot of the top critics and just people of the art world would be able to see their own solo gallery. And so they are all fighting for this spot. And this could have been just a great story about a character who's trying to find herself while also finding all of her identity within her friend group. But then this book introduced witchcraft into it. And once it did, I felt like the book kind of fell apart. And there's times where you're just like, the book wants you to think that maybe what's actually happening is not happening. And then it says, oh, wait, maybe this is actually really happening. And I was just like, oh, can we just get back to the point of this character story that's going on with her trying to find her own individual voice and be confident within herself and not have magic being the way out of that type of dilemma. And it really just put me into a mode where I'm just like, you could have been a good book, but sadly you were just average and just nothing really exciting to say. And that's the worst thing you can say about a book. And then another book that came out in 2025, and I love my library system. My library system, I was shocked when I'm getting all these 2025 releases. And that is A Sea of Unspoken Things. This right here is a mystery book with a little bit of like, they said fantasy type of elements in there, but not really. So the story is that one of the twins a twin has died, and the other twin is going back home to basically see what happened to her brother. Her brother died because he was out in the forest and he was shot by somebody. They don't know who. It could have been an accident because it is hunting season. And so she's just out there to rekindle her relationship with her brother in a way that is scary to her because she left their hometown while he didn't. And she kind of left that life behind, including him. And now coming back into her hometown, seeing the individuals that she grew up with, and knowing that she got out what other people didn't. It was a interesting character type of story in that way. But the book is very slow. Very slow. And it wasn't until the end where it tries to wrap everything up so fast that I was just like, okay. It was okay. It was a couple hours. It was like a 6-hour read, but nothing like that I'm going to be like, I need to read that again, or it's something I'll be forgetting about within a couple weeks. And then the next book, this is the first book that I read in 2025, was The Mercy of the Gods. This is an interesting story, and one that really kind of threw me for a loop because it felt like it was going in one direction, and then it splits off so drastically that I had whiplash. And it kind of made sense why you would have whiplash, because the characters were having whiplash and everything that they knew has been taken away from them. The storyline is that the scientists have figured out a solution to a science question that they have been looking into. And so they are being celebrated. So they're by the scientific community. And in the middle of the celebration with all their peers and people that they find out that their management group wants to split this group of young scientists apart and put them in different departments so that they can figure out what to do with this new breakthrough that they have found and how to develop it in different ways. And then all of a sudden, they find that there's an alien spacecraft coming to Earth. And that is when the story just pivots in a way that at the moment I was just like, oh, I'm getting whiplash here. I just don't know how I feel about it. But then I was like, wait, that's how everybody would feel. Their life is going one way, and then something drastic happens. And now everything seems so out of their control. These aliens come in, just decimate the human race, and gets them on their knees as slaves within almost like 2 days. It's like such a quick turnaround. In this group of scientists who are known at the time as the top of their certain craft, they get tasked by these group of aliens to find answers to a scientific question, and the whole entire purpose of this is to find if they can find worth within the human race. Because if this group of scientists do not figure out this scientific question, or the answer to this scientific question, then they would be the deciding factor for, can the human race come into this empire of aliens, or are they just found to be that they don't have any worth, that they don't have anything that they can offer this alien empire, and so we'll just eradicate all human race because we don't find that they have anything to offer our empire. And so by that, it was really a self-contained story, really small. Yes, there's a lot of different aliens and different scenarios or different like environments that they are going through. That's just a shock. But the story itself is very small. And I truly did enjoy it. There was nothing in there that I could say was totally horrible, but nothing I could say that was totally good. So at this moment, I'm going to continue on the series. Like, I got the novella that came out the same year that this book came out, because I think it came out in 2024, and the novella came out like 6 months after it. But this is a series that I'm going to continue. I don't have any plans to own it because I just haven't really, it hasn't grabbed me that hard yet. But it was just a good opening book to read this year, and a new series, and I'm just like, okay, I'm down for this. And then another book from 2025, Breath of the Dragon. I got this on my Kindle. I love Kindle. I mean, because, you know, it's just so easy to, you know, just read right wherever you are. But Breath of the Dragon is written by, I believe her name is Shannon Lee. She is the daughter of Bruce Lee. And this is kind of her love story to her father, and taking the values that he gave her, and this is like a story that she imagines that he would play some of these different characters, and that this is just a love story to her father. And also tagging along is Wannalee, or I forget what her name is, but she I believe does the Greenbone saga. I'm kind of yeah, but she came in to help Shannon Lee with the book. But these two women, this is a really fresh book just for me, because I have not gotten into the YA genre like really at all, and so going into this book, I was pleasantly surprised. The storyline is that this young boy and his father have been excommunicated from their land to go on to the eastern side of the wall. Now, this wall is in place because back in the day, these one group of people, they were all one, and they had these sacred scrolls, and both of them took different meanings from the sacred scrolls. And so because of that, they decided to disband their people, and they built a wall, and both of them have the same religion, but they have different interpretations of these scrolls. And so because of the sins of the father, the boy and his father have been excommunicated for 5 years. During those 5 years, war is about to break out between the two groups. And so their borders have been closed. And so now this boy has been living with his father for almost about 12 to 10 years. And he really wants to bring honor to his family. And there's this tournament that happens every single 6 years. And in that tournament, if you win, you get to be the keeper of the said scrolls and also have an ear or being the advisor to the king. And so he believes that if he goes in this tournament, does this thing, he can bring honor to his family. And the moment when we get into those battle sequences, the writing becomes awesome. You can obviously see every single punch that's being thrown. It's so visually amazing how it's done on the page that I was just like, this is really impressive. There are moments, though, where the YA aspect comes out in full force, and I'm just like, okay. I mean, it's not nothing bad, nothing, I haven't seen before, but I may need a little bit more subtlety. But finding out in some books, they don't want subtlety. They just want characters that are just to get the plot to move along, basically. But Breath of the Dragon, I had a good time with it. Nothing I could really say that was actually to my that I didn't really like. And then the next book. Now, these next books, I believe, are on the chance of me actually putting into my library. So the next book is Lightfall. Lightfall is like, if I was like have a person that says, I need something for fantasy, I want to get that fantasy genre, but I don't know where, I would point to Lightfall, because it is very much a mystery type of story, like a murderer whodunit type of story that I believe that they can really follow. Is easy to follow. There are multiple characters, but they all are within a certain. They're all close together, and they're all, you're seeing different. You're getting the different voices, but they're all focused on one thing. So the death of the prince has happened at the beginning of the book. The king is out to figure out who murdered his son. Was it the werewolves? Was it the vampires? Or was it these mystery others? And then you also have another side group who are also looking into the death of the prince and to figure out what did he know, and because they believe that he actually knew something, and why was he killed. And so by that standards, it's a very straightforward book, and I love the world within this book. Now, you got vampires, you got werewolves, but the thing that you got missing are the humans. What happened to us? They don't know. They believe that there were humans, or because vampires and the werewolves and these others are all immortals. So they believe that in their myths that there were mortals there, but they don't have actual evidence of these beings, us. And so there was a day where the vampires and the werewolves had knowledge of, or awareness of their own, of who they are. Because before that, they were all animalistic. And within that, they started warring with the werewolves for territory. And then the others came. Lightfall came. And at that moment, the werewolves and the vampires and these mysterious Lightfall beings had a peace treaty happen. They said, we'll stay here, you stay here, and you'll stay here. And then through that peace treaty, the vampires and the werewolves are offering their prisoners as blood sacrifices to the vampires. Because in this system that the vampires have, the class system goes by what kind of blood the individuals drink. So the lowest class, they drink cow's blood, rat blood, anything like that, any animal type like thing. But as it goes up in quality that shows where you are within the class system. And the upper class gets to have wolf blood. And this wolf blood turns them basically into vampires like you would think so, like with the wings and the talons. It's pretty cool. So I love the world. I enjoyed the story. And it was just like a refreshing book that you can point to new fantasy readers saying, hey, go read this. Because it's nothing like super big that's going to take a person so much to like, oh, I can't follow the story. Because the story is very simple. But the world's so cool. And now on to my favorite new book of 2025. That was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. This book, it was like reading Stephen King, but not from Stephen King, but not like reading a author who's like, I'm just gonna steal from Stephen King. I'm gonna feel like him, but not have my own individual voice. Where this one, it really felt like an individual voice, and I can't wait to like point to people, and be like, hey, if you like Stephen King, look for this author. The storyline takes place in the 1970s. And this 16-year-old girl is pregnant. And the family doesn't want any of her neighbors or any of the people in her town to know that she's pregnant. So they say that she's going away to go with a distant relative for the summer. But she's going to Florida to go into this house that is for wayward girls. For girls that are pregnant and they don't want this pregnancy to be known. So they go to have the pregnancy, give the baby up to adoption, and then go on with their lives. And the characters that are not the wayward girls are so cold at times and so ruthless to these girls for these decisions that they made, that I was just like, I felt so bad for them. But then once you meet the girls and the girls are interacting with one another, that's where the magic truly comes with this book. But with all these characters, and then the twist comes with the traveling library. And these girls find this book. The librarian's like trying to help the girls figure out what book to read for the week before the next trip, for the next time that they come out. And they're like, no. And then she pulls out this book. It's called Groovy Witchcraft. And the storyline just takes off from there. This is such a cool book. I'm definitely going to be reading more from, I think it's Grady Hendrix. Definitely be reading more from this author. It was just such a cool book that I don't want to ruin anything about it really, because I want you to go in there and just enjoy the book like the way I did. And now we're on to the final two. Piranesi. Piranesi by Suzanne Clark. I have owned this book basically since it was released, but I never read it. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I heard all these people raving from the mountaintop saying how good this book is, and I never read it. And then I finally have, and I'm so glad I did. Piranesi is such an intriguing world, where we have the character Piranesi who lives in a world that's a whole bunch of rooms, and in these rooms there's the ocean, there's strange statues. Piranesi doesn't know anything other than this world that he's in, and you just get his journals, and it's just really intriguing. And the way that Suzanne Clark does her prose it's very poetic and just beautiful. And then you get to see there's a couple other characters in this book. There are the bones of dead people that have lived in this world, and then there's the other. The other is this gentleman that every single couple of days, Piranesi and him get together, talk about what they have found, and they just seem like scientists. And it is a wonderful, wonderful world. I don't know how I felt about the ending. That's the only reason why I didn't get like a 5 out of 5 from me. But I'm going to be rereading this book soon because I really want to know how do I feel about this book in a second reread. Because sometimes that 4.75, which is at right now, can turn up to a 5 because, the second reread, like, oh, look at this. And it's so short. I mean, really. Now, on to the book that I gave a 5 out of 5 for this month. House of the Cerulean Sea. This is my second time reading the book. And I'm not afraid to put a book as my top book if it's a reread. Because sometimes with a reread, you will say, oh no, this was bad. Like, this was so much more disappointing than when I originally read it. Where this book was so magical. You got Arthur. You got Linus. You got all these characters that I love. And I still love. Even after reading the second book. I still hold this book and just in my mind, I just keep on thinking about the characters. The characters in these books, it's just beautiful. Linus is a person that goes and inspects homes that the adoption or the government has put these magical kids into. So they're all in these little homes waiting to be adopted, and he goes and evaluates to see if the living conditions is to what the standards are for the state or the government. And he gets the chance to go on this high mission with this group, with this home. And what happens is it's just so magical. Like every single page, you are smiling. And when bad things happen, you really feel those bad things. And then the outcome, you really feel those outcomes. And it doesn't feel like there's an agenda with the story. Even though there are some choices or some characters that can be looked at as, okay, they're gay. And a lot of times in some, different books, their sexual preference is who they are. But not these characters. Yes, some of them are gay. But they're more than that. There's an actual human in there. And you feel that. Every single character feels unique. And just the bond that these children have. And the story between Arthur and Linus is just so loving. And I love it that I read this book with my wife. We had the audiobook. We both have read this before. And we were laughing together. We were just having a great time. And so, what's better than that? Nothing really. But that experience with this reread, it's going to be so hard to say, oh, like when you look in your bookshelf, and I can always point to this one being like, this is one of my top favorites of all time. Just an amazing, amazing book. And it was even better on a reread. It was like going and seeing an old friend and just reliving all of our great memories together. So, what have you read this month? Let me know, or in January. Let me know down below. My name's David. This is the Library Quest. Please go like, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.